So with this color scheme, or this color chart, 12 scale colors, just go ahead and put down primary colors. The triangle that's behind it, that's being overlapped, just want you to write secondary. And for the circle that's behind it, for all these little extra sections here, is to write tertiary. Okay? And for the beginning, that's just the initial step. So your primary colors, you want to list right at this label up at the top. So I'm just going to start off with red. And for you to put the next one down here and here for the primary color scheme. So it's somewhat of notes, but somewhat of a quiz. So again, the primary color is red. Come down here, I'll just put yellow. And over here, just blue. The secondary colors are 50-50 mix of two primary colors, equal pieces together. And that'll give you the mix of the middle part right here for the secondary color. In this case, red and blue. Purple, they listed as violet. Okay. Blue and yellow, or yellow and blue, turns into the green. And the red and yellow midpoint there, 50-50. Is going to be your orange. Okay. Now this is the primary and secondary colors listed off. If you think of it in the printing terms, and if you write this down below here, this is CMYK. So the C is another name for cyan. M for magenta, Y for yellow, and K is representing black, but I'm just going to separate that just a minute there. And historically, the reason they have black, a K letter for that, is that they thought that if it was B, they would mix it up with the blue. So this four-color process that's carried over from the primary colors gives you that term, and this is called a process color. Okay, process color. And we'll cover that just momentarily here. And the section that it goes from beyond that is on the video, the digital part, and that's where you're going to get the RGB. Red. Green and blue. We'll talk more about that onto the color section there. Okay. So before we go too far, when you take a look at the tertiary colors, those are the colors that are, again, now a 50-50 mix of the two in between here. So if you could go ahead and label these, and traditionally the idea is that you start with the primary to the secondary color to make the tertiary colors. So you have the first here going into the second, into the third. So the color is traditionally called red-violet. And as you come down to this one, blue and violet, so it's going to be blue-violet. Okay. Same here, the primary color is blue, secondary color is green, so it's simply blue-green. Same here, here's your primary yellow, yellow-green. Orange and yellow. And red and orange, so red-orange. So that gives you that listing. So you have a non-colored color wheel, just a black and white with all the terms. Briefly coloring this part, this is the cyan, this is the process coloring. So this is when something is printed, they're divided into these 4 plates, 4 channels on the computer, so I'll show you that in a moment. And the RGB, the red, green, blue, is connected to that section. So as they go through this, a couple things that you want to keep in mind is that terminology, at least, is the HSB. They have the hue, saturation, and brightness. So I'm just going to put it HSB. So just so you know, hue is which is just another name for color. Saturation is the amount of the color. And brightness. And a lot of this gets a little confusing as it talks about colors, that type of thing, so they have extra pieces if I put in intensity. As that fits in there. So there's a lab channel and a couple other pieces that show up on the computer, but your primary sections on the computer are the CMYK, the RGB, the HSB for the hue, saturation, and brightness, and then it gets into what they call a lab channel. And then the last section that I just want to place in here as they go into the values, but we'll talk about that, is that they talk about a tint and a shade, and thinking of the drawings as well. The tint is when they're taking the main color, the color that you have, and adding white. And the shade is the same idea, only darkening the value, adding black. And just to show you real quickly, they will show, they've gone over lots of color theory over the years, and what will happen is that they'll take an elliptical approach, at least try to explain this, so that if you have the color wheel, just like we've done it here, in a 3-dimensional piece laying flat, what they'll look at is down the middle is the part where they're adding white at the top, black down here at the bottom, and all of these colors now take on this huge circular piece. And what this will come into is further explaining the color as far as its availability, both with this color process, the RGB color, and what you actually see in real life. They'll try to blend this. It gets a little confusing, but it all bases itself off of the primary colors. So again, when you get into the computer, it's using the video screen in order to represent all these colors. And it's a little different. It's similar to if you've ever been in part of a theater production, all those pieces that they use for the different lights, when they shoot those onto people, they mix them physically just by projecting them on something, and it'll give a different color to something, so it gets a little tricky as it goes through that. And we'll talk about the spectrum of the color, but just to give you that initial initial selection there.